Okay, looks like we are live except for on one platform. That's okay. I'm traveling this week, so my internet is not as good, so my stream is a little laggy, so I can't even get on camera. So here we go. It's all good. We're gonna stay consistent no matter what. The point is to do the reps, to do the work even when no one's looking. And this is what we're doing. Saturday, day 315. Today we're looking at 5125 South 15th Place in Phoenix, Arizona, 85040. This is a 4-bed, 2.5 bath, 1580 square feet. We're down payment of $38,500 for the entry fee, so that includes assignment. So I'm gonna assume there's a $10,000 assignment fee in there, right? There's not much information here, right? So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna guess that my purchase price is $330,000 plus $28,500. Right, just assuming in general there's a $10,000 assignment fee. Okay, so a $10,000 assignment fee, and then I'm gonna do $28,500 for my cash to seller, and my loan amount that I'm taking over is gonna be $330,000. Okay, so my purchase price is gonna be equals $330,000 plus my down payment. So the first thing I'm gonna do to back into this number is I'm gonna go to my loan amount in K6, put in $330,000. This property is a 6.25% interest rate at a VL, 6.25. I didn't get the maturity date, it doesn't matter. We're just gonna understand whether or not we're gonna cash flow on this deal first. So my asking price is gonna be equals my purchase price plus my down payment amount. So I'm gonna assume I'm buying this property for $358,500, right? And that's and I'm assuming that's how much I'm paying for it because that's how much debt I'm taking on, right? Plus the cash I'm giving to the seller or the agent, whoever that might be. Again, I'm just estimating. All we're trying to figure out right now for the subject to transaction is to decide whether or not this property is worth my time to investigate further. Meaning, is it going to cash flow? And if it cash flows, how much is it going to cash flow? And does that meet my criteria? Because I need to decide whether or not I have to spend more time on this deal to analyze it further. Meaning, is it worth my time to send a contractor out there? Is it worth my time for me to send someone to get photos out there, verify the condition of the property? Is it worth my time to pay a contractor to give me a bid for the rehab? Right? You don't know that yet, and you don't know if it's worth your time because if it's a good rehab, you don't really want a contractor going out there and not doing any work to give you a bid for a property that you're never going to buy anyways. So don't be that person. Don't waste a good contractor's time because then eventually they're going to stop picking up your calls. All right. So for this property, the monthly payment is $2,275. So what we do with that number is now that I got my asking price, I'm going to come down to this property tax number. Equals 2275. And all I'm doing right now is making sure I have all my expenses in a row, right? So 2275, I'm going to do that. And I'll subtract the principal portion of the sub-2 loan in B20, which was already calculated with all the details I put in earlier with the principal and the interest rate, minus the interest portion of the sub-2 loan. Now, I do that so I can back into how much am I paying for property taxes and how much am I paying for insurance. This seems a little light, to be honest with you, at $243, but that's okay. We're just going to go with it. And then because I'm going to use this property as an investment property, I want to add an extra $50. My insurance in Scottsdale has gone up about, on average, $400 to $500 every single year for the last 2 years. So I'm just going to increase it by $50. Chances are, if you switch a property from prime residence to investment property, it's going to go up higher. So you might as well be a little bit more conservative and put in the expenses now because you're going to pay it. All right, then I got 10% for my maintenance. This is where I'm setting aside money for my HVAC getting replaced, right? Right now, I just spent $5,000 just replacing the parts on 2 HVACs on a 2,500 square feet property. If you didn't set aside this amount of money every single month, because this money really doesn't belong to you, you are going to be overestimating your profitability because you're underestimating your expenses, right? Don't ever be that person that thinks your cash flow is just your rent subtracted by your PITI, your principal, interest, tax, insurance, because you're lying to yourself, right? We know the roof is going to get replaced at some point. We know the HVAC is going to get replaced at some point. So don't be that person that thinks you made all this money and then all of a sudden you get slapped with a $10,000 or $15,000 roof replacement and realize you didn't make any money for the past like 5-10 years, right? So don't be that person. All right, then I got 10% for property management, and I got 5% for vacancy. So now that I got all these numbers in place, now I'm going to put it in my rent amount. So for this property, I looked it up really quickly. Let's see how this property looks. This property was last sold on January 18, 2023. This explains why this person is selling just subject to, because they probably, with a VA loan that is 0% down almost, so they have no equity in the deal. So now that they were getting ready to leave, if another buyer cannot get a similar interest rate, they might not be willing to pay the same price. So this puts the seller in a negative equity position. And the only way you can get out by selling it at the same or higher price is by having the property being sold subject to, so the other person gets a benefit from the lower interest rate versus if they were to go out to get their own interest rate. So something for you to keep in mind. But all in all, this property looks decent. It looks ready. So I'm just going to leave it aside. I'm just going to leave it aside $4,500. That's how much I got for rehab right now, but I'll show you where that comes from. If you go to the rehab calculator spreadsheet, right, I got about $1,500 set aside for the roof in case there's any patching that needs to get done. I always set aside $500 for landscaping just in case there's anything that needs to be cleaned up before I get a rent ready. And for my property right now, this is the 1876 square feet, right? How many square feet is this property? This property is 1580. So I'm going to assume I need to just do touch-up paint on about 20% of it. It goes 1580 divided by 5. That gives me 360 square feet. That's more than enough money that I think I need to set aside. And usually I replace the toilets with high pressure flush toilets. That's just a personal preference. But that's what I got my Airbnbs, and I don't ever have any clogged toilet calls. So that's what I'm keeping there for. All right. So now I got $4,600 for my rehab, which is pretty accurate to what I had earlier. I now need to get my rent. All right. This is my final number that I need to decide on and determine so that I can figure out whether or not this is worth my time. So for this property, the first thing I'm going to do is I need to find out the rent ceiling. And let's see what county this is in. This property is in Maricopa County, and it's in 85040 zip code. So the first thing I'm going to do to get the rent ceiling is I'm going to Google HUD FMR, HUD FMR. Oh, I forgot to put on my chat. I always forget this. Sorry, everybody. And now I am going to get the rent ceiling by clicking on the first link. After you Google HUD FMR, I am going to go to access small area FMRs. I am going to go to look up FY 2024 small area FMRs, go to Arizona, go to county. And now I got by zip code, by bedroom count, what my rent ceiling is for 85040, which is right here. And you're going to see that the rent ceiling is $2450, okay? $2150 and $2450. 2150 and 2450. 2453 85040. 85040. Boom. I got the 3-bed. Boom. All right, and now I'm gonna have my market rent estimator. I'm going to go to affordablehousing.com, go to the owner section, go to market rent estimator, plug in the address, plug in bedroom count, and you're going to see that the rent ceiling here is going to be $2287. 2287. This makes you feel pretty good. 2415, 2409, 2550. Now I feel good about this because it says right here for 25 units within a 0.69 mile radius, which is pretty small. The average rent for these 4 bedrooms is $2287. Now, when you compare $2287 and $2450, you have to use the lower of the two, okay? And the reason you got to use the lower of the two is because of the rent reasonableness test. The rent reasonableness test essentially states that you cannot charge more rent to a housing choice voucher holder simply because they're a voucher holder. And this comes directly from the Housing Choice Voucher Program Guidebook, right? This is right in section 2.2, right? Housing choice voucher is what they used to call section 8. And we're bringing this up now because this test matters, right? Usually the rent ceiling also includes utilities, but if you were to just simply look at the FMR and say, oh, I'm going to get $2450, sometimes you forget that includes utilities. Sometimes you forget that's a ceiling rent. Doesn't mean that that's a rent you're able to get right away. Now, are there exceptions? Yes, there are some very small cities and counties that actually give more than what the FMR is, because they might be in a very high standard of living area. But that's not the case for most places. So this is what you want to do and have in place. All right. So now that you got 2450, you got 2287, this is how we are able to go ahead and do this. All right. So now that we got this place in there, we're going to use 2287 because that's the lower of the two. And if you rent this property out as a 4-bedroom for 2287, right, after all your expenses, you would be negative cash flow, $610 a month. That's a negative 14% return on your money. And that's assuming a purchase price of $358,500. All right. So that's where we are right now. Now, is that a deal for you? It's not a deal for me, but doesn't mean it might not be a deal for you. What if you're buying it to live there, right? So there's a lot of reasons why you might buy this property. You might wrap it. You might sell it to a, what we call as a penalty box owner, penny box buyer, because they're buying a property that they cannot typically get on a conventional loan. That's something that you have to work through. So be very, very thoughtful about why you're pursuing this strategy and why you're pursuing investing in general, right? Some people might say, hey, I just want to break even. Again, it's not investment advice. I'm not soliciting any investments on the call, right? Some people would just want to break even on cash flow and say, hey, if I'm not reaching in my pocket every single month and trying to fill it, if I know I'm in a hot market, such as California or whatever state or city or county that you think is a hot market, it's very speculative, but you might say, hey, if I make 5% on a $300,000 property, I'm going to go with 15 grand. That's more than any amount of $100 per month cash flow might bring me. That's your own personal preference. Just understand what your criteria is. And all we're doing here is just showing you the process that we do every single day to determine how do you come up with your buy box and how do you determine whether or not something's worth your time. Because how do we avoid burnout, right? Burnout comes from doing a ton of work without getting any return on your time. So if you don't analyze this deal the right way and you spend all this time, you're going to realize I've been looking at deals every single day and they've all been a waste of time. And eventually you're going to get to a point where you're going to figure out exactly what a deal looks like and you start ruling out deals really quickly. I might do one of these like 2-minute underwrite sessions and show you how quickly I rule out deals. Today, I wanted to walk you through just exactly the entire process so you can see the total number at the bottom, not minus 610, how much money you're losing on this deal. And that's important because this way you figure out whether or not it's worth your time. All right. So I hope you all have an amazing Saturday. I'm going to spend some time with my wife. And you guys want to copy the spreadsheet, just go to affordablehousing.io, right? Not .com, affordablehousing.io. Click on the Get Deal Analysis tool, put your name, email, phone number, and this is the fastest way to get a copy of the spreadsheet. Again, I didn't make the spreadsheet from scratch. I got it from a few other folks. I combined them, I tweaked them, and then I made it my own because I understand how I analyze deals and I understood how to make it faster. All right. So I hope you all have an amazing Saturday. Please, please, please spend some time with your kids, your family. And I'll see you again tomorrow for day 316. Let's stay consistent together, everybody, right? I hope you copy my homework and put it on your own YouTube channel. And for that, we are out. Have an amazing day, everybody.